This is a bullet from a Japanese rifle.
我看看这里有个东西，万一是个炸弹的话，挖下就完蛋了。我们要从四周挖，没事没事，我心里有数。
Imagine a place where you can dig into the ground and almost instantly turn up relics of war. Bullets, bayonets, and even mortar shells from World War II. That's the Wanjialing Mountains in China. More than 80 years ago, this was the site of some of the fiercest battles between the invading Japanese forces and the Chinese army. We went there to see what we can dig up, and boy, were we in for a surprise. But first, let's set the stage here. The year was 1938, and by then, Japan had already been waging war in China for 7 years. They had taken the entire northeast, seized strategic hubs like Shanghai, and even captured Nanjing, the capital at the time, where Japanese troops carried out a massacre that killed over 300,000 people. Now from there, the Imperial Army pushed inland towards Wuhan, which had become China's wartime capital. Japan's plan was simple: overwhelm China quickly, force a surrender, then turn its attention to the Soviet Union and the wider Asia Pacific. But the reality was very different. Yes, they won battles in China, yes, they captured cities, but the Chinese army simply refused to collapse. Instead, they fell back deeper and deeper into the vast interior, and China is a vast country. For Japan, Wuhan was supposed to be the battle that broke the cycle, the one decisive showdown to finally crush China's resistance once and for all. The Battle of Wuhan indeed became the largest and longest engagement fought between the two countries during the Second World War. So this is Wanjialing, a rural stretch of mountains and farmland, some 200 kilometers outside of Wuhan city. The literal scars of war are still quite visible. Bullet holes in old walls, trenches in the hills, but we were there to find bullets, because we'd seen stories online saying decades of villagers combing this land still haven't cleared it all. When we arrived at the old battlefields, we weren't sure what we'd find. 8 decades had passed after all. But enter Mr. Wu, a local villager and, as I was told, a bit of an enthusiast when it comes to World War II relics. Now, I'll admit, I was still a bit skeptical about whether we could actually dig up anything of substance. So I basically said to Mr. Wu, look, why don't we just sit down at your place? You can tell us your stories and maybe show off your collection. Wu, on the other hand, looked like I just insulted him. And before I could say anything, he turns around, disappears into his house, comes back with a full-sized metal detector, and says, let's go, I'll take you some bullets. This guy's a total pro. So we hopped in our car and followed his tuk-tuk. Still not entirely convinced? We stopped at a random spot, literally a 5-minute drive from his house, and that was the very first place we dug.
你看，你看，你看，
什么东西？
这就是我都不用费力都可以把它找出来。这是日本的3把大盖，这是完整的，看到没有？
As you can imagine, I was completely caught off guard. I didn't expect us to succeed so quickly and so effortlessly. And that's when I had a very, very grim realization.
3把大盖，没带卖，没带卖。
One of the greatest nightmares of any documentary maker is this. Things are suddenly happening. Amazing content is rolling in, and you realize you haven't mic'd up your guest yet, which means all that conversation could be buried under background noise.
先记录一下吧，你这一下就挖到了。
Now thankfully, we were in a quiet countryside, so the audio was still quite usable. Well, minus the cicadas and all the constant beeping of the detector.
大哥，你先上来，我给你带一下麦克风。
我们这里遍地都是这个东西，原来多得很的。What？ 看一下这里面什么东西。
Buried in 1938, excavated in 2025. It's not even fired.
这个弹壳粗一点的、长一点的， 就是我们国军的，咱们中国的子弹。这个小一点的、细一点的，这是日本鬼子38大盖的子弹。38大盖比咱们这个子弹要打得远。
After we finally got the mics on, Wu told me a story that honestly sounded wild. A few years ago, a fire broke out in these hills, and there were so many leftover bullets and grenades buried underground that they just started exploding non-stop. Imagine Chinese New Year firecrackers, except much scarier and a lot deadlier.
山烧着了，炸几天几夜，到处炸，那个大火都没人敢去打。
Wu then showed us his personal collection.
多的是啊！我们原来就是随随便便掏几个就上学去了。这个锡球，这个就是炮弹里面的，航空炸弹里面最多。这个是
刺刀，
对，
这是装在日军的枪上的吗？
对，这个带钩子了，你看吗？
If you think about it, it's a pretty macabre childhood experience. Most kids grow up digging for bugs and pulling out plants, but here, kids grow up playing with bullets from World War II. Before leaving, we decided to try our luck one more time.
这里我们父辈上班第一件事就是捡刺刀，捡那个死人骨头拿去埋掉，遍地都是。
And once again, he was onto something, and this time it felt like it might be a little bit more substantial than just a bullet.
看看是不是啊？看看运气啊！对，万一是个炸弹的话，挖瞎了就完蛋了。我们要从四周挖，没事没事，我心里有数。
OK， 我相信你。
这个像日本鬼子的手雷呀、我看形状，看谁猜得到这是个什么？这个很可能是炸弹片呢。你来看。 这是炸弹片呢，好，把它回填。
金属块。
对。
Anyway, after the little scare, I went to explore the nearby village. On the surface, it looked like the most tranquil and idyllic place, but hidden beneath that calm are some of the most unsettling wartime stories. Now, during the battle, many villagers developed mysterious leg illnesses. They call it winter melon foot. It turned out they had come into contact with lingering poison on nearby plants. The Japanese, in a rush to break through Chinese defenses, had resorted to chemical weapons. The last known victim, Cai Chunhua, passed away in 2024.
就是个吐血，我在脚上啊，跟我老有吐血啊。
年年发，每个月基本上都要发一次。 人发烧、发高烧，脚就肿，从那以后了，基本上不能起床。一般都是1个礼拜以后，不光是我父亲一个人，有很多人。
In these hills, the Chinese army made up for its lack of firepower with tactics, sheer numbers, and superior knowledge of the terrain.
Fighting in and out of trenches like this, the Chinese army almost wiped out an entire Japanese division. A major victory in the Battle of Wuhan.
But as Japanese attacks intensified, the Chinese forces eventually pulled back. Japan did capture Wuhan in the end. But for their military leaders, it was far from a decisive victory. The China still hadn't surrendered.
日本呢，并没有达到他攻占武汉、迫使国民政府投降的这种目的的。武汉会战的外围战呢，为武汉呢这个大迁移赢得了时间。比如说一些工厂啊，一些战略物资的这个转移，包括群众的转移。
The pattern continued: brutal fighting, tactical retreats, and a country that just refused to collapse. If you want to dive deeper into the full story of China's war of resistance against Japanese aggression, I've made a 30-minute documentary linked below. In it, you'll not only learn the history, but also experience it through real wartime stories, some inspiring, some haunting, brought to life with hand-drawn animations and visits to the relics themselves. That's all from me for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.